Hey everybody, welcome to Unstoppable, the world's #1 podcast when it comes to peak performance, as according to my mum. And today we are talking with Lita Lewis. Lita Lewis is renowned for being the face behind the Thick movement, which fights to break the American ideals of beauty. Her fans turn to her for support when going through all of life's challenges, and with her 500,000 followers on Instagram, she clearly is onto something. We're going to be talking to her about her stories, her makeup, her breakups, and how she got to where she is today with the Thick movement and being a speaker and a motivational life coach and hosting the Freedom Retreat. This is an incredible story of a young girl who has taken a corporate job, thrown it in, and created an incredible little business. All women out there who want to learn how to do the same, you will want to listen to this. Check it out and listen up. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to Unstoppable. It's almost like you should be Lita Unstoppable Lewis. Thank you for being.
Thank you.
That's good. It could be your catchphrase now. Yeah. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure, a real honor. You have really blown up on the social scene. Your Instagram is going fantastic, by the way. Your Instagram looks hot, like it is smoking on fire. But for those people who don't know, perhaps who Lita Lewis is, give us like the 15-second elevator speech of, who is Lita Lewis?
Lita Lewis is a kid that grew up in Sydney, Australia.
I love this. I'm from Sydney.
I heard. And had itchy feet to want to see the world. Decided to move to New York City when I was 23 so I could be centrally located, so I could travel Europe, travel the States, the islands, and found myself loving it. I stayed there, worked corporate America, got burnt out completely, and then decided to pursue something that I love. And then I've just turned it into a career.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
It's almost like the American dream or the Australian dream.
The world.
Yeah, it's becoming
dream.
quite
I think everybody
globalized.
has. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. I think for the most part, the people that I meet anyway have the aspirations to essentially work for themselves somehow, way or shape or form, whether or not it's part-time or full-time. But I'm always asked questions like, how did you do it? And I'm like, wow, that's a loaded question. But
it's individual.
I feel it's super blessed that I can.
So whereabouts in Sydney did you live?
I grew up in Sydney Southwest.
In Southwest,
in Camden.
Camden, right.
Actually, Mum and Dad, we lived in Narellan.
Yep.
So I guess like a little sub-city of Camden. Sydney Southwest.
Right.
I was a Sydney Southwest kid. Mm-hmm.
And you enjoyed your time in Sydney growing up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I miss it daily.
Do you still have family back in Sydney?
All my family's back there.
So you get back every year?
Every year.
Yeah, great.
For the most part for Christmas.
Okay.
Unless there's some crazy plans happening, but gotta go back and see Mum and Dad.
And then fast forward to the age of 23, you just kind of up and away, and you go to New York City. So what was the draw?
To New York?
Yeah.
Location, really.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be, I have family in LA.
Okay.
And I thought that being 23 and super sheltered, so to speak, that I was gonna be kind of like coddled and not really able to really test and challenge myself.
Okay.
And I was a very, very tenacious kid. And so I decided to just go to New York because it was more centrally located in the world, but that it also was a city I'd never been to. I didn't know anybody. And I thought that if I'm going to test myself, I'm going to dive right into the deep end. So that's why New York.
So what was the shift? At what point did you get to you're in your life in Australia, in Sydney? You're 23 years of age. Like, what was the gestalt? What was the moment you're like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it.
Well, truth be told, during high school, I held a little part-time job and saved up every single dollar I could.
Yeah.
My plan was to really sort of graduate high school and put a backpack on my back and like travel the world, kind of like hostile style.
Okay.
However, my parents kind of reeled me back in and said, no, we're not ready for that. And I'm the oldest of 3 daughters. And growing up, there was always this mantra that I was like a leader and had to do things so my sisters could essentially look up to me and, lead the way type situation. So Mom and Dad said, please go to uni, please. Just do that. And so I spent
just
basically—
be a good role model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
God, I love my sisters. So I did that. I did that. I put all my money saved aside to buying a car because I lived in Camden, Narellan, and I went to the University of Wollongong, so I needed a car.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's a bit of an epic drive.
Yeah.
And so what did you study?
I got a BA in, a double major in fine arts and design.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this part of your life, had fitness played any role?
Yes and no. No, in a sense that it was not something that I ever considered a career or anything to take seriously.
Right.
However, like from the age of, I couldn't even remember, if my mom was here, she'd probably tell you like 2. As soon as I could walk, maybe 9 months, she said I'd walked at 9 months. I was moving constantly and I was very overactive. My parents put me in little athletics.
Oh my God, that's where I got my start as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So athletics, track and field was life.
Yeah.
And then I come from a ridiculously sporty family. So all my cousins played rugby and soccer. And so fitness as a whole or in general was very much part of my upbringing. And then I'm somewhat modest because I did run competitive track. Like I was kind of like top 3 in the country, ran nationals.
Was this sprinter?
Sprints, yeah.
Me too.
100, 200,
Yeah.
4x1, 4x2, long jump. But I mean, I would never in a million years think that I was going to pursue something or be where I'm at now regarding fitness.
Yeah, right. And so along comes the age of 23 and
Yeah.
you finally get to that point where the sisters are set.
Yes, right. I graduated.
Yeah.
I worked a year because I then had to save a little more money.
Okay.
And then I said, I'm out. I got to go anywhere but here. And I say that, side note, not because I disliked Australia or disliked Sydney. I've obviously grown. When you're removed from home, you realize how much you took it for granted. I love home. But I needed to see the world. I needed to see
had the
something
itch.
else. Yeah.
And so off you go to New York City.
Yeah.
Did you know anybody?
Not a soul.
Not a soul. So you literally moved to another city.
Yes.
The busiest city in the entire world.
That's what they say.
Yeah, on the other side of the planet. Did you have a job lined up?
No.
You had money, a bit of money saved?
A little bit of money saved. That's
Yeah.
all I had. I had some money in my back pocket, 2 suitcases, a laptop, no place to stay.
And I love that you told your mum was worried about you. So you said, Mum, I'm crashing on a friend's couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to lie to your parents. You can't tell them that you're going to go to the other side of the world and not even have anybody to kind of scoop you from the airport.
Yeah, right.
No. So I told them that I had made some friends in uni that were exchange students and they were going to scoop me and I was going to crash on someone's couch. And then I had already a few job interviews lined up.
So you did?
No, it was all a lie. I can say that now.
You can say that now. Sorry, Mum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I basically put myself in a hotel, paid for 21 days up front.
Right.
And that was
and
the
that
test.
was your max? That was your max?
Well, that's all I could budget for at the time.
Right.
You know, so I was like, I'm going to give myself
Well, that was your
21
window.
days.
You said, I got 3 weeks to get my shit together.
Exactly.
Otherwise, I'm back on a plane to
Yeah.
Sydney.
The goal was 3 weeks to find a job, find a place to stay, and hopefully meet a few friends along the way.
And so what happens next?
By day 19, I had 3 job offers.
No.
I had made a whole bunch of friends that are still my friends today, which is amazing. And I found an amazing apartment in Brooklyn that I never left for 10 years. And if you ask anybody that lives in New York, they tend to like go from lease to lease to lease and lived in like 17 different places. But I stayed in the one place.
For 10 years. And so what was the first job you took in New York?
That's a good question. I was a inside sales executive working for a company that licensed video footage. So very much like Getty Images, for video.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And how long were you with them for?
I did a full year.
Okay.
But it was by maybe month 8 or 9, I realized, oh, this is a struggle.
Yeah.
I found myself working ridiculous hours. And I was super young and I didn't want to be in an office all day. I wanted to be out there in the city and planning my next travel. So I decided I was going to do a whole year because at least that looks decent on a resume. And then I was got to get out of there.
And so you did that?
I did that
And
after
got out
12
of there?
months.
And then what happens?
There's a short pit stop, if you will. I almost joined the Marines.
Oh, what?
The same building as this job was a recruitment agency. And we became really good friends. And he said, yo, you go down to Virginia, you can go through the training since you think you're so adventurous and athletic. And if you pass, we might invite you to join the Marines. But there's no obligation, it's not mandatory to join. So I'm like, cool, I don't want to join the Marines, but I'll do the training, plus we pay you. So I was like, cool, rent will be paid in New York, I'll go down there. But long story short, Dad, who served in the US Air Force, was like, if I have to fly over there myself and kill you myself, I will. You will not join the Marines. That cut short.
So you didn't even do the training?
No, I was so disappointed. I went through all like the medical procedures and got checked by their doctors. I was almost good to go. But my dad said, ain't gonna happen, ain't gonna happen. But, so I decided I was gonna look for another job because there was no way I was gonna stay or go back rather. And then I signed up to some type of agency that kind of like spit me out to a bunch of different places. I was willing to take anything. I was really desperate at that point. And fell into this role. I met this man that was CEO and founder of what was relatively a small company that were growing rapidly. And then life just took another turn.
What does that mean?
That means, I say this, keep it nice and short.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Devil Wears Prada?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So not to put my boss in that light, because he was actually a very charismatic, awesome individual.
Yeah.
But he was a full-on dude, and he was growing a company very quickly, and he was very passionate about the growth.
Yeah.
And his company took a liking to me. I worked directly for him.
You were the
so
PA
I was
for the...
EA,
Yeah.
PA, office wife, dealing with family, friends, private travel. I was basically coordinating private events and everything you could think of, running around like a mad person, but really kind of living this, cliche young girl in New York City kind of life. Learned really quickly about a lot of different things. And really much shadows an entrepreneur at his finest.
Was this the first time you'd been exposed to entrepreneurship?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
On that capacity, that level, absolutely.
And at what point in your journey, did you start feeling the compulsion that you wanted to do something for yourself?
So in working for, his name was Joe, I was in a relationship.
Right.
One I thought was going to be,
Happily ever
the
after.
one, you know. Great person, adore him and his family. And I think I threw myself into that relationship much deeper than I think would have been healthy now in hindsight.
Right.
Fell in love with him and his family, and more so kind of like his family as a whole. Growing up the way I did, my family sort of move and operate like a tribe. Like it's doors open, my aunts and uncles were very close. I'm half Samoan. So I think that's what attracted me more so to him than, say, the kind of cliche idea of love was his family. It really was, because I was kind of taken in. His mother became like a mother. His older brother was like my big bro. And so I was very much immersed in that. And I think this is the reason why I fell so hard, you know. So my ex was a professional athlete, and sort of navigating that life here in the United States and how they completely idolize athletes was not so much foreign to me, but kind of like I was flabbergasted.
They do it at a different level over here. Like in Australia, if you're a competitive athlete, you're someone that people look up to. But over here, you're legitimate demigods.
Right, absolutely. So really kind of like finding my place in that type of life or environment was really foreign to me. And then sadly, and also very, it's not common,
things happen.
Do their thing.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken to say the least. And not just that, I kind of lost my best friend because we'd been dear friends before we even decided to date. I chose to kind of exclude myself from the family, his brother, and really put myself in a hole. And that was my choice.
Right.
Because they were still reaching out. There was still love there. But in that, I lived in a state of denial. I realize now that I was suffering from deep depression. But I would, leave my apartment with a smile on my face and be the person that I am at work and amongst friends, knowing very well that I was really hurting inside.
Yeah, right.
So things got really bad. I remember literally crying myself to sleep every night, and in a very short period of time, lost a gang of weight because I just lost my appetite. And this life was really bad at that point,
And so, then
I
feel like this is leading towards this massive...
Okay, I can keep on going. I figured I'd let you say something, but
I'm more curious about like at what point, because like I've read the story and it's not that I don't want to hear what's coming next, but I'm curious to hear from your words, because I think a lot of people experience what you experience, whether it be through heartbreak or through disappointment in life. Depression or mental illness is becoming quite common now. It's almost like at epidemic levels. So I'm curious, at what point did you ask for help? Did you reach out? Like, what was your moment where things started to shift and turn around for you?
Yeah. So it was bad.
Yeah.
And I often recall
When you
this.
say bad, like, were you put on medication?
No, because
Yeah.
I was in denial. You couldn't tell me I was
Yeah,
sick.
right.
Or like I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think, and I recount this story often because I remember it so vividly.
Right.
I remember it being a Friday morning, and I was literally, all it was work, home,
Yeah.
sleep. And I remember waking up that morning to get ready for work. I walk into my bathroom, and the cabinet is open. And I remember just closing it, and in closing it, I caught a reflection of myself. Daunt, puffy eyes. I would look a hot mess before I left for work. But in that particular moment, I shocked myself so much that I remember just sort of falling to the ground and just weeping, like just crying again, and just having a moment where I was like, yo, go home. You need to go home to Australia. Just go back home. This is not working. You don't have an answer. I had suicidal thoughts. I used to literally take sharp objects and sort of like print them into my skin with no intent of wanting to hurt myself, but the pain. So I knew it was really bad. And in that moment, I remember calling into work, and I never take a day off. The way my boss operated, it was like, you better be
dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I remember calling and I said, I can't come in today. And it's usually an argument like, yes, you can. But I think he knew. Like, I was losing a lot of weight, and we became really good friends. And so he said, take the time. And I remember sitting there and literally wiping away my tears. And so here's the thing. Pride, ego. I have a lot of it sometimes. So usually in a more positive sense. But I knew if I decided to plan to go home, I would then have to face my parents, who had not raised that girl. Had to face my sisters, who I pride myself on being a good role model, and explain to them that I'm back here looking like a hot mess because a boy broke my heart. I said, I will not do that. So what does one do? I remember just sitting there literally hours thinking, what is it that makes me feel good, makes me feel better? And it took me back to my track days, movement, just moving, fresh air, just exercise, any type of exercise. And so I went down to the gym and I started working out. It was that simple. But I found myself in there maybe 3-4 hours, just going crazy.
Every day?
Well, the first day.
The first day, right.
But I noticed right after that, I walked out of the gym and I was like, wow, I am hungry. Finally had my appetite back, because I wasn't bulimic, I wasn't anorexic, I just had no appetite.
Yeah.
So I'd suck on candy all day just to keep my electrolytes up or whatnot. But I had a real appetite. And knowing, because I came from a competitive background, to fuel my body right so I could do it all over again next day.
Right.
And then slow and surely.
So you exercising by default
Exactly.
pushed you into eating healthy again.
Yep, because I wanted to be able to maintain this level of movements, especially in strength training.
Yeah.
And I was also running a whole lot. But
And were you on Instagram at this point?
Was I? I'm sure I did have an account,
Yeah.
but the type of content, or was I active on it? Probably not so much.
Okay.
But I definitely grew an addiction to the gym. Like, and I know that because if there were times, because work got so insane that I couldn't go to the gym, I would feel some type of way. Like I would crave to be in there because it was the one thing that made me feel better. And I knew the addiction was real when I realized that the pain that I would put my physical self through in lifting heavy weights and moving the type of way that I was essentially taking the emotional and spiritual pain away, because I then had to give it to my physical body. But I recognized that pretty early and neglected it, knowing that it was a good thing. But I very much walked into the gym knowing, like, what can I do that's gonna like make my muscles like cry, you know? Because for those few hours, I didn't think about
it distracted you off your other
absolutely.
pain. Yeah,
absolutely.
Replacing one pain with another.
Exactly.
You know, it was actually one of my clients who's a personal trainer said to me, he said, Kerwin, you need to stop punishing the body you hate and start creating the body that you love.
Wonderful.
I know, right?
That is strong. Yeah.
And so you're hitting the gym, you're starting to feel better.
Yep.
You're still in your PA, EA job.
Yeah, very much so.
But life is coming back together again.
So I thought.
Right.
So I want to say 3-4 months, my body transformed really quickly.
Right. Cell memory, you've got a base level.
And I was training crazy.
Really hard.
I was in there like probably strength training at least 6 days a week at least.
Yeah, right.
So I would go home and I would see this amazing body transform. I was like, okay. But I knew something was still wrong because I would still go home and fall asleep crying in my pillow. So what I noticed was the physical body was changing, but heart and soul, mind was still the same. So again,
was there like at this point any kind of conscious yearning like towards there's got to be something more, or was it just a feeling of not fitting in at that point with what you were doing?
No, I knew, I mean, at least I had, I guess the intellect, or at least, should I say, vibing on a different frequency to understand that what I was doing was still unhealthy.
Right.
But I was still doing it anyways because it was better than what I came from.
Yes.
And so even though my body was transforming and I was essentially happy with like the body that I was building, I knew that something was still off. And so I had another moment where I sat down with myself. I'm like, okay, what else makes me feel better? What makes me feel happy? And that family came into play, travel, all the things that originally took me to the United States. And so essentially that's what I did. I took some time off work. I went home. I traveled again. I became an avid reader. I was the person that was writing positive affirmations on Post-its and putting them all over my apartment, vision boards. That became very much part of my life.
Right. And you're still in a job at this point?
I'm still in a job, working crazy hours.
So it's like building
yes.
up. Yeah.
Until I felt I came to a place where everything was more aligned.
Right.
The way I felt inside became a reflection of how I looked from the outside. My whole mindset changed in doing these daily practices, meditation, prayer, spending and giving my time only to people that elevated me and inspired me versus, the girlfriends that just want to get together talking about, the hottest new handbag on sale or at Nordstrom's or whatnot. I recognized time was extremely valuable and I chose not to want to waste it anymore.
Was there any kind of moment around that? Like when you had a conscious realization around the concept of time?
I remember many times actually, drinks after work, that whole New York vibe of working crazy hours, going out, having drinks. I remember, again, after work, I would go to the gym. So I was kind of forced into taking drinks because, you never come out anymore. And sure enough, so I said, okay, a few hours and sipping on a wine and just hearing literally conversations like I'm kind of stuck in the matrix. And I'm listening and I'm this conversation and that conversation. I'm like, none of this is relevant to me in my life, my goals or my priorities. And I'm like, I gotta go. And then I was like, I'm only gonna give my time to things that I'm passionate about or consciously wanna be around. And these types of things just changed everything because it.
But there was no line in the sand moment for you. It was like this pressure built up over time.
Oh, well, no, not so much in that regard, but when it came to my job, yes.
Okay.
Because I left very abruptly.
Right.
Yeah.
And how'd that go down?
So before I tell that part, I actually had tried to resign numerous times.
Right.
And the boss was like, nope, not gonna let you. Because we were always in the thick of something. And I knew to replace me and what I did, not for him just professionally, but even like personally with everything else, it would almost be so difficult to find my replacement. So I remember him just saying, nope, take another vacation or give me a little bonus or something that would give me some type of incentive not to leave. But then one day, I don't remember how I had been feeling the night before, but I remember the routine in getting ready for work, walking to the subway, hitting the subway, being stuck like a sardine amongst everybody else, taking a moment, looking up and looking at everybody just be completely like not present, going, wow, is this really my life? Walking into the office, then being bombarded by several like executives, because essentially you couldn't really talk to my boss unless he made an appointment or you got through me, so everybody kind of attacks you for that. And I remember just going, give me a moment. I remember sort of closing my office door I remember taking a seat. I had 2 computer screens. I had a phone. Where my boss sat in his corner office, it was a glass offices, so he could see me and I could see him if we kind of maneuver a certain way. So he actually got in there before me that day, which is very rare. And I take a seat. He must have saw me, so my phone starts ringing. I look, I see his name, and it's just ringing, and I find myself just staring at this phone. So I look up and I realize I'm fighting back tears. Hangs up, obviously, and then calls back immediately. Then I look over and he's like, answer the phone. And I remember just going, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. So I'm there, I'm like fighting back tears. And then he comes into the office and goes, what the fuck? Come in the office, I need to speak to you. And I'm just like, can I have a moment? And then I take a moment, I walk in there, I take a seat and I sink into this chair and I say, can't do it no more, I gotta go. And in that moment he was like, I know. He finally doesn't fight me. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay. And it's as if several elephants just jumped off my shoulders. And in that moment, I just agreed that I'd stay on until I could find a suitable replacement.
Yeah.
But I essentially resigned.
Right.
On the spot.
How long did it take you to exit?
If I remember correctly, it was like maybe 8-9 weeks.
Okay. Wow. That's so kind of
we
you.
went through a whole lot
I
of
can imagine.
applicants.
Yeah.
And it's when you work with somebody
yeah.
like that,
it's a different kind of relationship.
Much different.
Yeah.
Much different, because we didn't have a typical or traditional
So at the
relationship.
point where you decided, okay, this is it, enough's enough, then at this point, before the 8-week period where you worked out of the role, like, did you know what was going to come next?
Not really. There was a level of peace I had.
Right.
I don't remember kind of like scrambling.
Yeah.
I was pretty much just going through my regular routine. And I did plan to leave and go spend some time with my family before I kind of worked it out. I was smart in the sense that I definitely had like a little cushion of savings. But I knew it had to be in fitness.
Right.
I knew that I was going to do something. And quite honestly, in that period, I was using social media. So I did have this kind of organic following at the time because I was sharing my workouts. I was sharing quotes and parts of my travel, books I was reading, food I was eating. So there was like an audience, if you will.
Yeah.
And at that time, if I remember correctly, by the time I left, I might have had like 50,000.
That's a big following.
Well, right, but to me it was kind of like, oh, that's neat, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't put any kind of relevance on it. To me, it was just what it was. But it wasn't until a friend said to me, he said, holy smokes, you have like 50,000 people following you. And my response was like, yeah, it's crazy. And he asked me a question that changed how I thought about it. And he said, very simply, well, what are you gonna do about it? And I was like, I don't know.
So when is this? Let's look at the chronological, what year is this when this goes down?
So this was before I resigned.
Okay.
It was perhaps like the seed planted, if you will. You know, I had no idea what I was going to do about it. I didn't think that there was any call to action at all. But I knew in him saying so, and somebody I respect that moves a little differently in life, that something could be done.
Right.
I just never acted on it because I'm in this role. I'm well paid. So I never really gave it 2 thoughts until, you know, I'm in this space now training somebody and I'm kind of like, I'm going to have to figure this out. But didn't do anything about it really naively until I came back from traveling and going home, seeing mom.
So how much time did you take off?
Altogether, it was probably like 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did your 8-week workout, and then you took 4 weeks off.
Yep.
And again, I'm curious as to, was there any kind of commercial idea coming together at this point? Did you have any idea about how this was going to commercialize?
Right. So the one thing that I was always asked on social media is like, oh my gosh, I want to train with you. Like I like your energy, your philosophy, you know, and I was sharing a very strong image about body image and how you don't have to be like this to consider yourself fit, strong, feminine, beautiful. And so I guess the way I was speaking about body image and kind of like breaking down what mass media was saying was Bible, there was a lot of women that came out like, I just want to be around your energy. Like, can you train me? And this would be somebody in Dallas or San Diego or Atlanta or Philly. And I'm like in Brooklyn. And so this idea of like group fitness came about, and I was running free workouts in my local park, which was a couple of my friends that had a great time, that invited their coworkers that came, they invited their friends, and what was like 3-4 people over a certain amount of weeks in my local park, 30, 40, 50 people, until park authorities were like, hey, you need a permit for this. You can't have all these people out here.
So how long did it take you to build it up to that point?
I really can't remember. I want to say I had been doing it for at least 6 months.
Right.
And then because of social media, like I'd be putting pictures and videos or whatnot on the gram. And then sure enough, people like, oh my gosh, can you come to Houston? Can you come here? Can you come? And I was like, oh, there's a great demand for that. I was like, I guess I can. So I figured it out. I would pay for my own travel, put myself in a hotel, find a public park to come squat in. I bought like a little portable speaker, bought myself a few cones, mapped out a little area. I said, I'm gonna be here at this time. Here's a cost, register online. And sure enough, I just started funding my own tour.
Wow. So you started doing a group fitness tour.
That's how it all began, really, and things took off from there.
And so how long did it take you to replace your income before you actually started realizing that, okay, this isn't, because I'm gonna assume this was born out of purpose, like this was born out of like, this is what you love.
Absolutely.
And then it was a natural consequence to people asking you, you know, they're seeing what it is that you love, you're doing what it is that you love, and they're asking for help with what it is that you love.
Yep.
But I don't think I've ever heard of anyone, apart from, you know, these big Instagram influencers, who would actually do a group fitness tour.
Yeah.
Most people would like, it's going to be, you know, Monday through Saturday at the local park, you know, be there, be square. But you decided to go on the road. That's a pretty big decision.
I guess when you say it like that, okay, do I get points for that?
Yeah, well, I think so. But would you agree? Like, because, you know, you're obviously in the industry.
I guess now in hindsight, yeah. Well, the thing is, it was the message. The message was universal.
Yeah.
And being a woman of color that didn't necessarily fit like the definition of what it was to be XYZ in fitness, I realized by saying, hey, this is who I am, this is my truth, this is where I came from, I noticed a lot of women be like, oh, me too. I've been an athlete all my life, but I'm apparently considered overweight. I've been lifting weights, and I've been told that I'm too muscular, too manly, that I'll never find a husband. Or teenagers, young girls saying, oh, finally there's somebody that looks like me doing something that I love to do. And of course, there's no parameters for that. It wasn't only women in Brooklyn that appealed to that or related. It was across the country.
Was there any moment in the journey where you started to go, fuck, I'm not only doing what I love, but I'm actually kind of making some great money with this? Like, maybe there's like an entrepreneurial empire here that I can give birth to. Did that happen organically, or was there a moment where that came to you and was like, shit, I can actually do something big here?
Well, I think in the first year, what I earned, I think might have been a mere fraction, maybe a quarter or less than a third of what I was making in the corporate world. But that was okay, and I essentially had enough to sort of cover my expenses of things of that nature. It wasn't in probably maybe year 2, moving into year 3. Definitely by year 3, I had exceeded my income. And this may sound silly because I have friends in business that be like, that sounds ridiculous. And you can say it, but you might not mean it. But I can say this genuinely. I have never in this process since resigning from my job truly been motivated by money. Like, it's never been like, how can I make the most money? I essentially have always been about sticking to the roots. This is what I did to help mold and change my life for the better. And if you relate and it can help you, awesome. And then I can provide services that give us more of a deeper relationship or more access to me somehow that I essentially need to monetize, because I do have bills and rent and things like that to pay. But I essentially just wanted to create a quality service where women actually felt like I was a friend. Because now I realize, especially 5-6 years in, that's what holds me, is that I am truly genuine in the fact that I want to help people. And I'm the one that's super humbled where I could be anywhere in the country and somebody recognizes me and they're like super excited and I'm just equally like, oh my God, this is so awesome. You know what I mean? So I think that's one thing that I definitely love about.
So it's almost like you do what you do and money is the natural consequence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm one of the most blessed people to be able to say that.
Yeah, right.
And credit to my father who always said, never focus on chasing a dollar. He would say, focus on just being the best at whatever you choose to do in life and the money will come. And so I like to say that I'm just a living example of that mantra that Dad always instilled in us.
So it's interesting. Let's talk about your parents for a second.
Yeah.
So your parents, you obviously got a close relationship with Dad and Mum.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What do you think were the greatest lessons that they gave you, or the greatest things that they did for you as a child that you still now see benefit you here today?
Yeah. Well, starting with Dad,
Yeah.
I think now as an adult, I find myself seeing a lot more in common with my father. In a sense that my dad was raised in a small country town in Kentucky, very, very bright. And I know that he wanted to do something with his life, so he joined the Air Force because when one comes up with nothing, they need a way out. He traveled a lot and was a true professional in his field. Now works as a radar engineer and is literally one of the best at what he does. He met my mother along the way, who was a little old, island girl that came from a massive family, valued stability. And I think, with Dad, I find myself wanting to move. I'm not afraid of change, like my father. He likes to test himself constantly, challenges regardless of age or his perimeters, always trying to better himself in any type of way, shape, or form. I find myself very much the same. So I think now in hindsight, looking back at all the things Dad kind of instilled, and when you don't realize it as a kid, he was also very adventurous, loved nature. We spent a lot of time camping, canoeing, spending time in the water, fishing.
Oh, beautiful.
That these are things now that I value so much, and the reason why I feel like I can move freely in the world and without fear. Now, my mother, I don't know even where to begin. She's probably one of the most remarkable people I've ever known.
Wow,
and I say that, I try to say that very unbiasedly because a lot of people say that about their mothers. But my mother instilled in us, my sisters and I, a true sense of family and what matters, just simply what matters. And it's an invaluable lesson to have, especially as an adult, especially as a young person, having moved to the other side of the world, navigating life by myself for the very first time. Because our family is very, very close and we all grow up together on my Polynesian side. My mother has been very, a spiritual guide, has been, reminds me that whenever I feel lost or alone, just to always remember where I come from, because that is deeply rooted in strength. So again, there's so many, I've been blessed to have great parents, and they separated when I was very young.
You sound like a little Moana.
Right?
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, that was a great example because my family, I'm not sure if you know too much about Polynesian culture, but being a little black girl, being raised in Australia, my family unit and my Polynesian backgrounds were everything, were my roots. Now, when I moved to the United States at age 23, I knew nothing about what it was to be black. I knew nothing.
Wow.
My first experience in black culture happened at age 23.
Wow.
And so, even though I may look like an African American, and I am, I didn't know how to navigate as one. In America, they like to label you, so I wasn't Polynesian.
Right.
Although my heart was, I am Polynesian.
Yeah.
I had to really navigate a whole nother world in different multiple levels of the sense of being somewhere new. Because I was seen a certain way, and apparently I had to live up to that or be that.
Did you experience racism in America that you didn't experience in Australia?
Absolutely.
Was that something within itself that you had to get used to as a natural part of life over here?
Yeah, I don't like to think of me having to get used to it because I know now that I don't want to get used to it, and I'm I navigate life very much aware.
Yeah.
However, when you're super young and essentially alone, everything sort of came as a lesson, and one that was very disheartening. The way I was raised was to move with love, to welcome everybody, to be loving and trusting. Now, when I moved to the United States, I found myself seeing other women of color thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have other Black friends. But I was not received that way because it was like, oh, who are you? It was a sense of kind of prove yourself because we don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And that's also another part of my messaging in fitness too, is the idea that I can bring masses of women together that are primarily minorities.
Yeah.
But then...
Is that a big part of your client base, is minority?
I'd say so, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on which city, because sometimes it's half-half. But I'd say as a whole, I speak primarily to a minority group.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's a great niche to be involved in.
I think so, they're amazing.
Okay, so you're now, at what age did you leave and you're now doing the fitness boot camp, you're now doing the boot camp tours. What age is this?
I was 30.
Okay, so how many years ago was that?
5.
5. Cheeky way of asking your age.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then how did the business start to work? Because now you don't just have, your business model has changed a lot now.
Yeah, I mean, so there's certain things, everything came from demand. Nothing was intentional.
Yeah.
And this is it, probably considering where you come from, like, oh really, that's what happened? I never thought to have anything first before the demand was there. So again, my key messaging on social media, people were like, oh my gosh, can you put that on a t-shirt? I want that. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me print some t-shirts. Can I train with you? Can I train with you? Do you do online training? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. No, I don't, but maybe I'll do some training programs.
So you produce online courses?
Right.
Yeah.
Because of the presence of social media and how it works, and I know you're all too familiar, I get offers for collaborations, campaigns that were a blessing because I was not aware that someone would pay me X amount to post something that I already use daily or eat daily. It was amazing. And then free product, that was also really cool. But nothing that I'm doing to monetize where I am right now first came with intent.
Yeah.
It was always a reaction to a demand.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to build a business.
It is?
Wow, when you think of how many people build a business, because one of the things that's interesting is most people will get an idea, they'll go, oh my God, I've got a great idea for this widget. They'll go and build the widget. They'll go and make the widget. They'll invest in the widget. They'll get prototypes developed, and then they finally, 8 months later, they've spent $10,000 or $120,000 and they've got this widget. But they have no idea if anyone's going to buy it. So by virtue of you creating the demand first, like that's actually probably the smartest way that you can build a business is by servicing a demand. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
So what have been the top 3 biggest lessons that you've had to learn, as a transition from being someone who's been an employee, then you've moved into the fitness space, but then you become not just a fitness professional, fitness influencer, but you're now in the fitness entrepreneur space. Like, what have been some of the biggest lessons? If there was 3 top lessons that you've learned on the business side of the fitness business, what would it be?
It's a really good question. I think it does pertain to business.
Yeah.
What I found is that when you're in an influencer space, you may be speaking to a particular brand that kind of wants you to bend a certain way to maybe to fit into their key messaging or their image. And at the end of that conversation is a check, and sometimes a very healthy check. What I found to be a lesson, also a wake-up call, is to not always have to bite at every opportunity that comes my way just because there is a check at the end of this activation or campaign. What I pride myself in is remaining authentic. So I'll never collaborate with or use or promote something that I just truly don't use, genuinely agree with or love. That's something that's been important to me that I've held true to this day. So in business, it's kind of like this balance, a lesson that I've learned to stay true, but also be smart enough to be like, well, perhaps I can negotiate some things so it does sit with me better, both morally and all these great things. But that's one lesson that I think is a constant one for me.
Yeah.
Another would be, well, You kind of answered this earlier, but I always feel like I'm doing things backwards. And I've always wanted to be more proactive, but I know I do not manage time well. Terrible at it. What I realize is there's there's different types of people, right? I've done like one of these studies before. There's one that are super, they're into numbers and structure and timelines, use calendars, and there's another that is just truly the creative. Now, I told you I did my BA is in fine arts and design.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing fitness, I'd be teaching art to children.
Yeah, right.
So I'm a creative at heart.
Okay, right.
So I can sit there and be the talent all day, but then when it comes to all these other things, I suck at it.
So how well have you done at putting people around you that balance out your weaknesses?
On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being phenomenal, probably 0.5.
Yeah, right.
I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
But I'm also not trusting.
Okay.
Because I am the way I am, I'm also a bit of a control freak.
Yeah.
So I'm terrible at it. Now, I've had some great mentors and great people in my circle that I basically just grab the advice from and just try to do everything on my own. But to answer your question, I'm horrible.
Is it something that you want to improve on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that could be something, we could talk about later.
Yay.
So I'm curious, like your brand's taken off. You've now got over 500,000 followers on Instagram. You've got all these incredible products. You've got it's almost like I've looked at your apparel. It's almost like you've got your little fashion line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress,
Yeah.
but it's again very crazy how people are like, oh my God, I want that, and then sure enough,
And so what's next? Like, what do you see is the next evolution of Lita Lewis brand?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
And I think I've been pondering this for at least 18
good.
months.
Yeah, good.
Everything changes, right? And I try to operate from a place that if social media just disappeared tomorrow, like, who are you? That's my question. Who am I without this presence? And I keep coming back down to this, I think, ultimate goal. And when I say it out aloud, most people think I sound crazy. But I'm gonna say it anyways. I think the ultimate goal for me, I know the ultimate goal for me would be to take my messaging and put it on a different level, a different platform. Now, what would that platform be? Because I've pondered that as well. And I thought, and I think, one person that I know that has a colossal platform that shares a positive message, advocates for brands, businesses, books, whether or not business, health, celebrity, that is supposed to inspire the masses. I think of Oprah Winfrey, and I think of the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I thought, how awesome would it be if there was like a new age Oprah? Not that I want to be Oprah, but be somebody that would have a platform big enough to reach the masses where I can be like a catalyst or somebody that would be somebody that brings all different types of inspiration to a platform or a stage. And so when I say, I want to be like another Oprah Winfrey, people are like, girl, that's crazy. But I'm like, sure, it is pretty crazy, but I think...
Crazy or inspired? Yeah.
Maybe, I'm not too sure, but there was a time where I'd be like, I'm gonna keep that one to myself. But I think ultimately I'd love to be able.
Wow, I think that really kind of prompts the next question, which is, so when's the podcast coming?
Oh my God, I'm terrible. Again, I'm
Wow.
I don't know about podcasts. I have friends that do it and they do so well at it. I guess maybe it's I have to go sort of inside myself again and remind myself that I'm capable.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like I just don't have what it takes. I couldn't.
Well, I think that's the challenge sometimes when you've got a good brand that's doing well, is, that has so much potential. It's like you can do anything, so what do you choose to do? And I think it seems to me you're someone that chooses to do the things that are aligned with you. But it sounds like you need to put some support structures around you so that you can pursue these projects that enable you to, bring this inspiration to fruition. Because the world needs more leaders. The world needs more Oprahs. There is no what's the word I'm looking for? There is no what Oprah's done has been an incredible gift to humanity in general. But it doesn't mean that there's no one else that can follow. Like, the funny thing is about this, like, I want to be Woprah. So, which is the white Oprah. So
Okay.
I've been saying this, and that was the whole goal. when I first started the podcast, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy this. And I started doing it. I was like, wow, I actually really enjoy this.
Okay.
And so I started looking at Oprah, because she's a great role model, not
Jeez.
just as a human being, but also as a catalyst, also as an interviewer, as a journalist. She's done a phenomenal job.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I'm curious, the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Since the entrepreneurial space, or just
Sure.
in life as a whole?
In life in general.
This may sound cliche, but it comes from both mom and dad. Again, my mother said to me before I left, she says, don't go out there trying to be someone else. Don't go out there and see bright lights and fancy glitter. Continue to remember where you come from, right? And be the best version of yourself, which is now messaging that I use to my audience. Because in a world where everybody's trying to aspire to be like someone, talk like someone, think like someone, dress like someone, I think we need to have more role models that say, you are perfectly fine who you are, but what is the best version of yourself? Yeah. That's what you should aspire to. So I credit my mom for that. And my dad, I had already mentioned it. When it comes to career, he was like, baby, do whatever you are passionate about doing. If you want to collect garbage, figure out a way to own a collection of garbage trucks, and you do that passionately and you be the best at it. I value that, because when I left corporate, a very well-paid gig with all the benefits, and essentially this, idea of success, I left it for fitness. Yeah. What I was doing is lifting heavy things. And I was like, well, I'm gonna lift heavy things. I'm just gonna be the best at it and see where it takes me. So I love that advice from my father too. And
so what advice would you give to someone, perhaps male, female, that's not really relevant, who's perhaps stuck in that corporate wheel? They're feeling like they're unfulfilled. They're feeling like, they're suffocating. They're having the moments where it's like, fuck, I'm not sure I can do this anymore. Yeah. But they don't necessarily have 50,000 people on their Instagram account. They're maybe not sure what it is that they want to do, but they know they want to be doing something greater than what they're doing right now.
Great.
What would be the best piece of advice you can give?
That's a great question. I think this way. Not everybody, like you said, has a bunch of followers.
Yeah.
Not everybody has or can quit on a whim. Not everybody has like a bunch of money saved in their savings account. But I tell people this all the time. Whatever moves you, right, moves your heart and spirit, whether or not it's knitting or creating art, whatever it is, it might not bring in dollars straight away.
Yeah.
But it is super important in this life, in this time, to give time and energy to that craft, to that love and desire. Because it's only in pursuing what makes us better people comes a new life from within. I think when you feed what it is that you're passionate about, there's something that happens inside. And I think that if you, even if it's part-time, pursue something on that lane, something always comes of it. So I tell people to give time and energy to what they love, because it's important for just total wellness and peace in your life.
So how do you, that kind of prompts a question that I forgot to ask you earlier. How do you maintain balance in a world that is so busy with, with the Instagram, the Facebooks, all the social media, all the things that you do, the boot camps, the travel and everything else? Like, do you think balance is a myth, or do you think it's a matter of being able to prioritize the chaos in the moments that you're dealing with it?
Oh, I think a bit of both.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that are kind of in the space that I'm in that have maybe 4 or 5 times more following than I do. I've actually paid attention. That's one thing that I've learned from a mentor of mine, to pay attention to others and how they move and that type of thing. And so I look at, say, my colleagues, if you will, in the space, and I kid you not, I'd say maybe 3 out of 5 of them are moving in ridiculous speeds in business. I have crazy expectations of them. Have this image on social media that sadly is a complete, utter lie. I see it, right? I have decided that I will not be that person. The minute that it does not serve me, or I feel like I have to create fake content or structure or curate an image of perfection, I think that I'm gonna find something else. How I find balance is keeping everything simple. Now, with that said, I do find that I need to probably put in play better structures, time management. But for me, I keep myself super grounded. I'm sure I could be making a lot more money. I'm sure of it. But what keeps my sanity and keeps me loving what I do today, and I'm sure tomorrow, is to keep things as simple as possible and remember my key values. Family, good friends, and just continuing to create what is really a mere reflection of my true reality.
Yeah, right. You just said your values then. Like when it comes to anything you do, is that something that you connect with before you make big decisions? How do you make decisions? I'm curious.
Just based on something real. I mean, it's that simple.
Are you an instinct person? Like, are you someone that is very much guided by intuition and instincts?
Yes, very much now, these days, more so than back when. I mean, I've definitely had my, the situations you find yourself in when you realize a collaboration that you're kind of in the thick of is not a good look, that you may be partnering or on set with somebody that has the complete opposite messaging than you, and then yet, we're gonna be on the same poster. To me, that's really not a good look.
Yeah.
And again, I come from a place of non-judgment. Like, everybody has their thing. I place no judgment on what people want to say, do. But I definitely find myself, not being, guided more so by my intuition now. And there were just lessons learned. So when something doesn't feel right, I do a bunch of research. And if I find that I'm still not sitting right, I realize it's just not for me. And I realize also that when it's not for me, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to ponder like, oh God, I really
Did you find it
go.
hard to trust that at first?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I think it's human to kind of, second guess things. Because, you don't have the luxury of knowing what the next paycheck is coming from so much. And so when you turn something down based on something that just didn't feel right, and you could sort of foresee it being like not the right decision, like you go, damn, that check would have been really good right about now. But I'm okay. I've learned to be okay. I don't ponder on a decision I made 6 months ago. I'm a big believer in what is for me will be for me. Yeah. And I also don't believe in this idea of like sheer competition. Like, I'm going to create what I want to create, and what comes of that will essentially be for me.
Yeah, right. And you've now in a new relationship, from what I can see. It looks like a beautiful relationship.
Yes.
So how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage the entrepreneurial side and the relationship side? Like, how do you bring those two together in an environment like this?
Yeah, I think I got really lucky. My guy, and his name is Guy, right? So I say my guy. That's my guy. He's been really understanding of like the space or the career that I'm in.
Yeah, right.
For somebody that he also works a non-conventional job. He works in the film industry as a professional stuntman. So his schedule is bananas. But it also allows him, when there's free time, to really be by my side and kind of like help me with a whole lot of things, which is something I'll never take for granted. So in him being by my side when it comes to, speaking on panels or being at expos where I'm running camps in front of people, and like he gets it. Like, and when we first met, he wasn't even on social media. So he didn't even, I think when we met, I might have had close to 400,000 followers. And so there's a sense of being someone doing something. But I just told him that I love fitness, I'm a trainer. And so when he realized how I use social media and the impact that I have on women, he kind of was taken back and said that he was super proud and wanted to learn more about how I moved in an entrepreneurial space in working for myself using social media. And then once he kind of gauged that, he's now been an advocate in helping me. And he actually has more of a mindset, a brain mindset, so he helps me. He's the one that helps me with a lot of things.
Yeah, right.
However, he's got his own career that takes him away, and he has 4 beautiful sons.
Oh, wow.
So he's a busy person. Yeah, exactly. So I try not to lean too heavily on him.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like my only team.
Yeah, right. No, that's great.
Yeah.
It's great that you've got that. Mm-hmm. So I am curious, and I think this would be a great place for us to to move towards the finish. Like, you've done incredibly well on social media. You know, your social following is fantastic. Your whole business is driven by social media. So if there was 3 pieces of advice that you give, you know, someone who is either getting into business or wanting to get into business, whether they're building a personal brand or, you know, just a business brand, like what 3 pieces of advice would you give to someone that would help them understand how to use social media in an effective way, not in a distractive way, to help them build a brand and a business?
Another good question. I tell people this, especially in this space that I'm in health and fitness. In 2018, unlike when I first started, I feel the health and fitness industry is overly saturated, right? And I feel like anyone that has a couple abs and a nice butt will be at the gym, and then somebody will approach him and it's like, oh, I want to get abs like you. I'm like, oh, I can train you. It is simple as that. So it really like dilutes what a real professional, a real health and fitness professional can, you know, do to somebody versus how someone can really damage another. I tell people this, it is super important to use social media as honestly as possible, and to show something that essentially not everybody is showing. Like, everybody seems to have, in fitness anyways, doing the most craziest type of workouts, all for the gram. And so I tell people to be honest about their training, honest about the image that they show, be authentic, because as cliche again as it sounds, no one will be you. So what about you can you show that no one else can? And so I think that's where a real social media presence starts, by having your own voice, your own image, and your own niche. Because my niche is, you know, speaking a positive message around body positivity and body image, and the thicker woman became my niche, and I have surrounded all my key messaging around that. So now when they're looking for somebody, a female speaking up body positivity, you know, I get a call, which is amazing. So I tell people to find their niche and just honestly just stay true. Stay true. I
don't think there's ever been a greater time in history for a greater requirement for authenticity than there is now.
And that's kind of sad, right?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's sad and I think it's beautiful at the same time. You know, I think we're living in a world of polar opposites right now, and you know, there's never been, for me, I think, a greater opportunity for us to wake up and really see the balance that's in front of us. And I think that's the cool thing about social media is, in many ways, you know, it does create this level of comparison that in some ways can create, you know, depression for some people or anxiety for some people. But I think there's also these field of influences that are now coming in that I'd like to see myself a part of as well, include myself in that, where we're actually showing the reality of life. You know, being an influencer isn't about sunshine and lollipops every day. You know, there is thunderstorms, there is rain, and every now and then there's a fucking cyclone and even an earthquake. And I think that's what people relate to. And you know, I think what you're doing is an incredible example of that. And to hear you echo that message, it gives me hope. It gives me hope for the future. Because I honestly think that's one of the greatest things that you could do when it comes to marketing is show everything. Because that's what creates that relationship, and that's what creates a connection, and that's what creates a trust. And we will follow people that we trust, and I think you're doing an incredible job of it.
I appreciate that.
No,
Thank you
got
very
it.
much.
So if there's one piece of advice that you would like to leave the listeners with today, like what would it be? A piece of advice for life, love, liberty, or even the gram, like just one piece of advice that you feel compelled to share.
In this moment, what will it be?
Don't fuck it up.
I think something personal actually has happened to me. Nothing to do with fitness, but in my personal life. I think I met my boyfriend kind of in my 30s, and for a long time I had this idea of what I wanted in a relationship, or like what I deserved. And not that I was ever the woman that had a whole list of criteria. I didn't move that way, but I had this idea. And in order to meet somebody, or meet the person I'm with now, I really had to break down the expectation or that idea to really be able to open myself or be vulnerable to it, like a new idea. So I think what I like to do, especially to women that might find themselves without or struggling to find, whether or not it's in an intimate relationship or maybe even a career, is to break down what hasn't been working, to be open and courageous enough to be vulnerable to see and build a new idea.
I love it. That's a great piece of advice. So where can we find out more about you? If people want to find out more about you, your boot camps, your retreats,
Yeah, so
where do we go?
yeah, I mean, I live online on litalewis.com. My international retreats lives on a separate domain as myfreedomretreat.com. And across social media, I should say, I'm Follow the Lita.
Follow the Lita.
Yes.
That is good. I
Yes.
do like that.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. It was like the role model thing.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. Lita, I got to tell you, like, your story is one of inspiration, and I'm so glad to have you here, and I'm so glad that we got to hear your message, and yeah, that you shared your story so vulnerably. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And do me a favor, don't forget to drop me a review on iTunes. Would love to hear what you think. I love reading what you guys have to say. And your reviews make sure we keep creating killer content just like this. If you want to stay up to date with me and all my movements, please jump onto the website, kerwinray.com. And also check us out on social media at Kerwin Ray.